Let's see what legal minds I got for us with Mr. Hasan Diddy, uh, gatekeeper Diddy Piker, Adolf Hitler.
Hasan Piker guilty of making a terroristic threat against podcaster Ethan Klein's wife, Gila Klein. We'll talk about today on the Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. Of course, I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney, commenting on the latest in legal news. And of course, is the fast facts version, the quick and dirty version of the latest in legal news. And if you like the format and like the topic, please let me know in the comments below and
That's
like the
great.
video. So today we're getting into yet another comment
I
by
mean,
one Hasan Piker, who has
I
made it
sometimes
kind of
get to
his
watch the live
profession
stream.
of making statements on the internet that draw the line, that really are dancing on the line between free speech and illegality. And this is something he's become very, very adept at just dancing across this line. So today we're going to get into a particular instance where he deemed the wife of podcaster Ethan Klein, Gila Klein, a quote unquote valid military target. Now, whether or not this is illegal really dances on the fact and the context of how he intended that. So we're going to talk about the two different intentions that he could have had, one of which is likely criminal and one of which is likely not criminal. So we're going to get into that today. So let me get into this video and the reaction from some people, such as Asmongold here, to the deeming of Gila Klein, once again, wife of podcaster Ethan Klein, as a valid military target. So let's get into this reaction so you can kind of see the two perspectives, the Hasan perspective and the anti-Hasan perspective.
If it's your favorite podcasters like Wife that participate in these raids, the violence that the Palestinians engage in an act of resistance against this illegal occupying force is literally legal, definitionally legal. Okay? It's just the truth. And
no, it's not. If somebody attacks Gila Klein, they're going to go to jail. Why is he telling people this? Why would he be set? What is wrong with you?
So, and he later goes on to talk about the Twitch terms of service and also talk about, potentially referring to this to the FBI. So the kind of conflict here is people look at this and say, is this a criminal statement? Is this some sort of threat? Like, where's this going? And so I cooked up, of course, a lovely PowerPoint for you guys to talk about Hasan's Gila threat and whether or not this is criminal or not. Of course. In the past, Hasan has made edgy statements. He's brought people on his podcast, that are indeed questionable. We have, of course, here, as we call him, Timothy Chalamet, or wannabe Luffy over here, a guy who may or may not be affiliated with.
Hey, I mean, look, that picture with him on the beach, and he was with some people that looked like they were taken hostage. Look, I mean, hey man, he looks someone who's very shady. Let's just say that.
Group, certainly he cosplays and dresses up like he is, but perhaps he's denied he is part of it.
Yeah, he's denied it so far.
One way or another,
I mean,
Hasan is no stranger to having people on his podcast that at least represent in their external image or project an image of being aligned with a Western designated, rather globally designated. Most developed countries have designated these individuals as terrorists. So he's certainly gone there in the past, and currently this argument related to Gila Klein really centers over what tense they were using. So let's talk about that. Designating Gila as a valid military target. So he described the wife of Ethan Klein, Gila Klein, as a valid military target, which implies that a valid military target means, as he said, if you use force against them, and in the larger clip, the broader clip, he mentions use of force, not just by militaries, right, but by terrorist groups. So he's saying the terrorist groups, and he lists off a whole bucket list of terrorist groups or designated terrorist groups, etc., and says any of those people targeting this person would be a valid military target. Now, The problem here is that Gila Klein, the wife of Klein, became a U.S. citizen in 2019. There was a very public naturalization process, which was put on YouTube. It's plastered
Okay, so
everywhere. You can find out
so
that she
they are
became a
American
U.S. citizen in
citizens.
2019. Therefore, in present year,
I thought they
2025,
lived in Israel.
that
I
would
don't
be
know
a
their whole
U.S.
fucking
citizen.
situation.
So there is
To
a
be
little
honest,
bit of a
I don't give
question
a
about
fuck.
targeting a current U.S. citizen
Even Klein has
by
gone
foreign
on
forces or directing
fucking
threats towards
sometimes to say
a
some
current
stupid shit
U.S.
about
citizen. That
America.
is
Sometimes I want to hang him.
the core of the problem. However, all clips must be taken in full
And now
context.
he's right, and now
for
he's fighting his own
disclosure,
war
I
because he
did watch the
decided
entire segment. So while I'm just showing you a portion because I want to keep this a
to
quick
each
video,
their own.
I did watch the entire segment. And I always try to be professional and objective. And I put my feelings aside, which once again, I can care less one way or another about Hasan. I really do not lose sleep at night because of Hasan Piker.
Oh yeah, I don't
However,
either. I just make fun of him because
there are ways to take this
He's a
that are
fucking
favorable to
retarded.
Hasan and disfavorable to Hasan, even within that
Sorry,
context.
that was
And the
rude of me.
problem is that Hasan has an inconsistency.
I
And
gotta
this
stop saying the F
inconsistency
word. It's not
is
nice.
bouncing from present to past tense. And in present
Nice to
tense,
say that.
he may very well be a criminal, but in past tense, he may have an arguable defense. So let's talk about past versus present. Of course, here we got past Hasan eating cake with a spoon, and of course his present GQ shoot, which everyone was such a big fan of. And of course, he both posted. These are both pictures he posted.
He was like
both
sucking
links. This
his
is
own
not
cock
secret information here.
on
But
that
we're going to
fucking
talk about the
GQ
difference. So let's get into
article.
present tense. So present tense
Actually,
is
he
where the
sucks his own cock
criminality
for all
kind
those
of
articles.
becomes a problem. Because if Hasan intended, his intention with that statement or the overall context of that or the overall meaning was Gila Klein is currently a valid military target. Or if he intended that Gila Klein was in the past and still remains a valid military target, that is a massive problem. If this was the intention, it's a problem because that would likely be a criminal terroristic threat. Now, terroristic threat is a broad term. There is no one specific law that is the only terroristic
Yeah, that's
threat
why
law.
it's like
There are a lot
That's
of
why I try not
laws
to
that can
use
involve in that
treason
because a
and shit
terroristic
like
threat
that because
usually
those are like
involves
super
violence,
specific
intimidation,
and like
and those
to
are
get
violations of state law. Every
to get
state
people
has
on
laws
that
against
stuff. You need
violence,
to have like a
intimidation,
lot
even
of
some have
need to
rules
make
against
sure that they are
cyberbullying,
actually
etc.,
doing
right?
such a
Which
thing.
would all be state law. There are also federal laws which come into play, particularly if you are calling upon foreign forces, whether they are paramilitary forces or the military forces of other countries. If you're calling upon the military to target a U.S. citizen, yes, that could very much fall under a lot of terrorism statutes or invitation
Well,
to
yeah,
terrorism or
because you're
directing
asking, right? You're
that
asking for a
and
terrorist
calling for any sort of threat to a U.S.
threat.
citizen
Yeah,
is a
it's like a
massive
terrorist.
problem.
It's a
Even
threat.
as a U.S. citizen,
I mean,
particularly
just
post
baseline, it's a threat. Right?
2001, right? Post 9/11,
And then
right?
it can
The
get
laws have
elevated if
changed
you
in
like,
that
do
era, and
crazy shit.
we are well into that era. We're 24 years down that era, so we're well aware of that jurisprudence, and that could very well land somebody in jail if they're making that sort of threat. However, we don't
Also,
know
me
whether he was
saying
making during
people
the
should
present
get
tense, at least we
noosed, and
can't
you
say for
should
sure,
you
or
find
the
a cliff and
past
jump
tense.
off and
Because
noose
if
yourself.
Hasan
Yeah, I shouldn't
intended
be
to
saying this
say
shit
that
either.
Gila Klein
Not
was
nice.
past tense a valid military target in the past, or he intended to say Gila Klein was but is no longer a valid military target, that is arguably free speech and defensible. Now, I know some people may have a problem with that and may think, okay, well, it's disgusting, it's immoral. Yes, but even disgusting things, immoral things can technically be free speech. People are
Yeah,
free
well,
to say
yeah.
things that you disagree with, even vehemently disagree with,
I mean,
even
just look at
strongly
how a
disagree
bunch of
with, even think are
politicians are doing
disgusting.
it nowadays.
Those aren't
right?
necessarily
They're all
illegal.
fucking
And when I say
reprehensible,
defensible,
fucking
I mean
miserable
defensible
fuckheads.
legally. So
All
if
of
he
them
was
should be
brought to
hung,
court,
but
if the
we can't
charges
do
were
that,
brought
can
up,
we?
and this is the intention, the thing is, international law, the thing that he loves to talk about and pretend he's an expert in, that is arguable and ambiguous every single way. And one of the reasons why a lot of these people like to talk geopolitics is you can argue whatever, and there's
Correct.
always going to be something to justify it. If you dig in international law, which I've deeply studied and done many, many courses on, you can make up an argument every way. And in every modern conflict, every single modern conflict, you can look at the existing on the books international law and say, you know what? I can argue this as self-defense, or I can argue this is justified, or I can argue this is a war crime. There's ability to argue it every single way. And as we say, often the victor or the people that are perceived as the victor get to spin that narrative under international law their way. And that's just how it goes, whether we like it or not, which is why a lot of people like to talk about this, because they can pull up any argument and just kind of make it that way. But I would give a warning that if you are ever brought up on war crimes at The Hague or UN, etc., if you're dragged into the tribunal, please do not hire Hasan Piker to defend you. He is not qualified to defend you at these bodies. Although the thing is about many of these tribunals is a lot of times, especially on the state level and the national level, they really have toothless enforcement. They rely on self-enforcement or rely on the countries to go ahead with the criminal enforcement, etc. So they're kind of hard to enforce. But that said, I still wouldn't hire Hasan Piker to defend you. So what's my conclusion here? My conclusion is Hasan can reasonably argue the statement wasn't past tense. He can say, hey, look, this was a past tense statement, and therefore he's unlikely to be convicted. That means thrown in jail.
Don't say that either.
As a form of terroristic threat. Of course, guys, on this channel, I call balls and strikes. I
Hasan
don't
Piker
say,
is just
hey, this person's going to jail forever. If
a
it's
waste
not
of
a situation
space.
where it is. And this is simply one where you cannot convict Hasan beyond a reasonable doubt that was a terroristic threat. It's just not possible. However, for those that want to sit out there and say, oh, but Hasan makes me angry, there are some other points that you should bring that I can bring up.
Twitch is a waste of space. I hope
there could
it
be
fucking
investigation.
burns.
Sure, law enforcement could look into it. Law enforcement could also develop a file, develop a overall binder, or what you call a dossier on Hasan Piker, and build up all of these things he's saying to concoct overall a pattern of behavior which displays
and also
certain things which may be
and he already does have a
problematic.
pattern of behavior if you go back long enough to where his Young Turk days, when he was with Destiny, when he did his podcast with Destiny and shit. If you were to go back far enough, you can find a lot of disgusting shit he's said over the years, right?
And if in the future he makes a statement which is in line with
That's
the
why I don't like the
negative
guy.
interpretation,
Dude's a fucking
then you better believe all of
he's a
these
paid
statements
actor.
he's made are going to come out. And
he's a paid
further,
shill.
We all know that Hasan Piker was denied his global
just like every
entry,
other
which is
person on the
people who go
on
through
the social
extensive
media
background checks and
space.
stuff, like me, can go in and out of the
All
United States, as
influencers
freely
and
as they want,
content creators,
whenever they
they're
want,
basically
with
paid
expedited clearing.
shills.
This is a privilege. This is not
they go
a right.
they go hatch
yes,
it
you get a passport,
for whatever
which still
their
is a privilege,
fucking
not a right.
agenda
but global
is.
entry is a privilege above that privilege of having a passport. It's a privilege of going through the line quickly. Well, this is more than sufficient grounds to continue to deny Hasan privileges like global entry. And as much as he wants to have the 5-star LA mansion life and go through everything like a breeze, he's going to have to stand in the line with the plebs, the poor plebs that he normally doesn't have to deal with in LA. He's going to have to stand in line with them because he's not going to be getting global entry anytime soon, I think.
Oh yeah.
And further,
oh
if
yeah,
he
that's
continues
right.
to make future
He
statements,
relegated
it may be an issue
himself
that
to
are
the
careless.
plebs.
But I
now.
will say, to be bipartisan,
Yeah,
this is
he
not
took
just
away his
something
own
that applies to
status
people
because he
on one
decided
side
to
of the
be a
political
fucking
spectrum.
retard.
This applies with eagle
shot himself in the
veracity, meaning equal veracity, equal strength. To
Right,
both
he
sides
has
of the aisle.
he
right,
has
left,
the status
center,
and money,
you
but he
are,
decides to
you
be a
need to be
fucking
careful
terrorist
about what you're
sympathizer.
saying on the internet, and this is a serious problem for streamers.
It's too
But
fucking
guys, let me
bad.
know what you
You're
think
gonna get
about
hung
Hasan's statements in the comments below. Keep it polite, keep it reasonable, keep it professional, and I will see you on the next
one. But what if see legal mindset, you don't see, you lost your way. You're not you've lost your way, man. Where's illegal mindset? See, we can't have this anymore. All right, there you have it. Legal mindset. If you want to subscribe, there you have it. If you want to check out more of his content, he also has more. Yada yada. Thanks for watching. See you next time.